baha sa isang isla sa Iran.
Ang dahilan kung bakit namula ang tubig sa isla ating aalamin mula sa mga detalye ng balitang ibabahagi maya-maya. Magandang gabi. Ako po si Ricky Mathay.
Ako si Nina Richie Alagaw Flores. Ito ang mata ng Agila International. Para naman sa mga headlines ngayong araw ng Biyernes.
Pilipinas nanindigan na wala itong commitment sa China na alisin ang Typhoon missile system sa bansa.
Ayon sa isang credit rating firm, Pilipinas isa sa top 10 sources ng love scams.
Ating alamin ang reaksyon ng mga Amerikano ukol sa immigration crackdown ni Donald Trump.
Hindi bababa sa 30 katao sugatan sa mga araro ng isang sasakyan sa Munich, Germany.
At isang tulog na lamang at magsisimula na ang Biniverse World Tour Kickoff Concert sa Philippine Arena. Muling iginiit na Pilipinas na wala itong pangako sa China na alisin ang US-deployed Typhoon missiles sa bansa.
Sa halip ay inalok ni Pangulong Ferdinand Marcos Jr. ang China na ipupull out nito ang mid-range capability missile system sa Pilipinas kung ihihinto ng Beijing ang kanilang agresibong kilos sa West Philippine Sea. Yan ang paglilinaw mismo ng National Security Council o NSC. Taong 2024 nang dumating sa Pilipinas ang Typhoon missiles at ayon sa Philippine Army, ginagamit ang missile system bilang bahagi ng military training at exercises. Ipinaliwanag pa ni NSC spokesperson Jonathan Malaya, walang commitment ang Pilipinas sa China. Binigyan din naman ni Malaya na ginawa ni Pangulong Marcos Jr. ang alok sa pamamagitan ng media, subalit iba naman ang naging pagtanggap ng China dito. Inakusahan kasi ng China ang Pilipinas na tinalikuran nito ang commitment na pansamantala lamang ang deployment ng missile system at ibabalik din sa Estados Unidos pagkatapos ng mga mahalagang military exercises sa bansa.
Binuksan na ng COMELEC ang kanilang aplikasyon para sa local absentee voting para sa halalan ngayong taon. Kaya bilang paghahanda rito ay pinaalalahanan ng poll body ang mga eligible na mag-avail ng opisyal at empleyado ng gobyerno, kabilang ang mga miyembro ng Philippine National Police at Armed Forces of the Philippines. Gayon din ang mga media practitioners, kabilang ang technical and support staff na pansamantalang nakatalaga na mag-cover sa pagdaraos ng eleksyon na magpasa ng kanilang aplikasyon bago ang March 7. Tinukoy ng COMELEC na ang mga government officials at miyembro ng AFP at PNP ay maaari ring magsumite ng aplikasyon sa mga pinuno ng tanggapan, supervisors, commanders o opisyal na sumusunod ang ranggo sa kanila. Samantala, maaaring isumite naman ng mga taga-media ang aplikasyon sa mga regional election directors ng COMELEC sa NCR at sa Office of the City Election Officer para sa mga independent cities outside NCR o Office of the Provincial Election Supervisor sa lugar na hindi pa nabanggit. Nakatakdang local absentee voting sa April 28, 29 and 30 mula alas 8 ng umaga hanggang alas 5 ng hapon.
Nagpahayag ng pagkabahala ang pamahalaan ng Pilipinas sa paggamit ng flare ng isang fighter plane ng China sa reconnaissance aircraft ng Australia na nagpatrolya sa South China Sea. Tinawag ng Australia na unsafe at unprofessional ang ginawa ng Army Air Force ng China nang gumamit ito ng flare sa P-8A Poseidon ng Royal Australian Air Force. Nanganib-an nila ang buhay ng kanilang crew dahil sa flares ng Beijing. Ayon kay Foreign Affairs spokesperson Maria Teresita Daza, dapat ay ginagalang ng lahat ng bansa ang kalayaan sa paglalayag at paglipad sa loob at itaas ng mga international sea lines of communication gaya ng South China Sea at iwasan ang panghihimasok sa mga lehitimong aktibidad na isinasagawa sa international waters at airspace.
Namataan naman po ng pag-asa ang isang low-pressure area sa labas ng Philippine Area of Responsibility o PAR. Ayon sa Weather Bureau, huling namataan ang sama ng panahon 430 kilometers northwest ng Pag-asa Island. Subalit, nilinaw ng Pag-asa, mababa ang tsansa na maging bagyo ito. Anila, wala pang direktang epekto ang naturang weather disturbance sa alinmang bahagi ng bansa sa ngayon. Sa kabila naman po nito, maulap na papawirin na may kalat-kalat na pag-ulan ang nakakaapekto ngayong Biyernes sa malaking bahagi ng bansa, dulot naman ng tatlong weather systems.
Matapos ang ilang linggong rollback sa oil products, ay panibagong taas presyo naman sa mga produktong petrolyo ang aasahan ng mga motorista sa susunod na linggo. Batay sa projection ng Department of Energy Oil Industry Management Bureau, posibleng pumalo sa 45 hanggang 75 sentimos ang dagdag sa kada litro sa gasolina. 30 hanggang 60 sentimos naman ang maaaring taas sa presyo sa kada litro ng diesel, habang nasa 15 hanggang 30 sentimos ang posibleng price hike sa kada litro ng kerosene. Ayon sa Energy Department, na ilan sa dahilan ng paggalaw sa presyo ng oil products ay bunsod ng tumitinding tensyon sa Middle East at sanctions na ipinataw ng Estados Unidos sa Iran at sa Russia.
Kabilang ang Pilipinas sa top 10 sources ng love scams ngayong taong 2024. Ayon po yan sa credit ratings firm na Moody's. Ayon sa Moody's, nasa 1,193 estimated new profiles ang ginagamit para sa pagsasagawa ng romance scams sa buong mundo noong nakaraang taon. Mula sa naturang bilang na 4% or that's 45 profiles ay mula sa Pilipinas, kung saan tumaas ito mula sa 10 profiles noong taong 2023. Paliwanag ng Moody's, nakaambag ang isolation noong pandemya sa pagsirit ng ganitong mga aktibidad. Anila, ang karaniwang target ng mga love scams ay mga vulnerable individuals katulad ng mga senior citizens. Sa kabuuan, ang Pilipinas at Malaysia ay kabilang sa 10 bansang may pinakamaraming kahina-hinalang profiles para sa taong 2024. Kasama rin dito ang Estados Unidos na siyang nangunguna naman sa listahan ng sources ng love scams.
Susunod, Ukraine umalma sa peace negotiations ng Estados Unidos at Russia.
Robert F. Kennedy Jr. nanumpana bilang Health Secretary.
At ano naman kaya ang sinasabi ng mga Amerikano ukol sa immigration crackdown ni Donald Trump? Yan at iba pang mga balita sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
This portion.
Pagsisikap. Dama namin ang iyong mga sakripisyo. Kita namin ang pagharap mo sa bawat pagsubok. Kaya sa kabila ng mga hamon ng buhay, nandito kami para umalalay. Kasi katulad mo, gusto rin namin ang magandang bukas para sa kanya. Hatid namin ang dekalidad na edukasyon at makabagong pasilidad sa abot kayang halaga. Kaya huwag ka nang mangamba, sasamahan ka namin tuparin ang mga pangarap niya. Maaasahan mong sulit dito ang mga pinagsikapan mo. Sa aming mga makabagong pasilidad at sistema ng edukasyon. May lalabas natin ang aking talino at mga kakayahan niya. Kahit sa munting halaga, makakasiguro ka na makakasabay siya sa mabilis na pag-ikot ng mundo. Sa new era, karamay mo kami sa bawat hamon. Kaagapay mo kami sa bawat hakbang. Kasama mo kami sa bawat ngiti at tagumpay.
Nanawagan ng Seoul Unification Ministry sa North Korea na tigilan na nito ang pagdedemolish sa isang reunion facility sa Mount Kumgang. Ang nasabing pasilidad ay napagkasundo ang gamitin ng Pyongyang at Seoul para sa pagpupulong ng mga pamilyang nagkahiwa-hiwalay pagkatapos ng Korean War. Sinabi ng South Korea na ang pagbuwag ng North Korea ng Mount Kumgang Reunion Facility ay isang anti-humanitarian act at isang paglabag sa batas.
정부는 남북이 합의하여 설치한 금강산 이산가족 면회소를 북한이 일방적으로 철거하고 있는 데 대해 강한 유감을 표명하며 이러한 철거 행위를 즉각 중단할 것을 엄중히 촉구하는 바입니다. 금강산 이산가족 면회소 철거는 이산가족의 염원을 짓밟는 반인도주의적인 행위이며 우리 국유 재산에 대한 중대한 침해 행위입니다.
Pinag-iisipan rin ng Seoul Unification Ministry na gumawa ng mga legal na hakbang laban sa unilateral demolition ng Pyongyang.
Nanindigan naman po ang Ukraine na hindi nito tatanggapin ang anumang kasunduang pangkapayapaan ng Moscow at Washington kung hindi kasali sa negosasyon ng Kyiv. Jessica Bautista para sa detalye.
Naninindigan si President Volodymyr Zelensky na hindi nito tatanggapin ang anumang bilateral agreements para sa kinabukasan nito kung hindi ito kasali sa pag-uusap.
Головне, щоб все не йшло по плану Путіна. Коли він хоче зробити все, щоб перемовини у нього були двосторонні, він зі Сполученими Штатами Америки, і ми просто не зможемо акцептувати, як незалежна країна, будь-які домовленості без нас.
Nananawagan si Zelensky sa Europe na umupo sa negotiating table sa pagtatapos ng giyera.
Я вважаю, що за столом перемовин повинні бути і європейці, бо ми є частиною Європи, і ми будемо обов'язково членами Європейського Союзу.
Nagkomento rin si Zelensky o sa plantang nuklear habang patungo ito sa Munich Security Conference. Ito ay isang araw matapos kausapin ni US President Donald Trump, si Russian President Vladimir Putin at si Zelensky sa kanyang unang mga hakbang upang tapusin na ang labanan. Ibinahagi ni Zelensky ang laman ng kanilang pag-uusap ni Trump.
В розмові він не сказав, що Путін і Росія була пріоритетом. І сьогодні ми довіряємо цим словам. Для нас дуже важливо зберегти підтримку Сполучених Штатів, Америки. Але дуже важливо, що я зазначив під час нашої розмови вчорашньої, що так, у нас вже було 3 розмови з президентом Трампом. І тому я не сприймаю цей дзвінок, що це був пріоритет, що він спочатку говорив з Росією. Хоча дійсно це не дуже приємно у будь-якому випадку.
Dagdag ni Zelensky, hindi nila pinag-usapan ang NATO membership na alam niyang tinututulan ng US. Jessica Bautista para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Sa kaugnay na balita, nagbigay ng opinyon ng Germany ukol sa US-Russia peace plan para sa Ukraine. Ayon dito, hindi nila susuportahan ang anumang kasunduan na hindi kasali ang Kyiv. Si May Fanway Zaragoza para sa detalye.
Noong Huwebes, sinabi ni German Chancellor Olaf Scholz na walang desisyon ukol sa Ukraine ang dapat gawin ng hindi kasali ang Ukrainians.
Nichts über die Ukraine ohne die Ukrainer und nichts über Europa ohne die Europäer. Das gilt. Da sind wir uns mit allen unseren Freunden und Partnern in Europa einig.
Dagdag ni Scholz, anumang kapayapaan ay dapat pangmatagalan at titiyak sa soberanya ng Ukraine.
Um es klar zu sagen, ein Frieden muss langfristig halten. Er muss die Souveränität der Ukraine sichern. Deshalb wird ein Diktatfrieden niemals unsere Unterstützung finden. Wir werden uns auch auf keine Lösung einlassen, die zu einer Entkopplung europäischer und amerikanischer Sicherheit führt. Davon würde nur einer profitieren, Präsident Putin.
Nanindigan ang Ukraine at mga kaalyado nito na kailangang isali ang Kyiv sa anumang peace negotiations. Ito ay matapos mag-usap si US President Donald Trump at Russian President Vladimir Putin at sinabing hindi makukuha ng Ukraine ang lahat ng lupa nito na makasali sa NATO. Nanawagan si Scholz na sa ganitong mga pagkakataon, dapat na magkaisa ang Europa at mga kaalyado nito na suportahan ang Ukraine para sa kapayapaan. May Femi Zaragoza para sa Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Maraming social media users ang nakapansin na nagpalit ng ruta ang eroplano sinakyan ni US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Mula po Washington ay papunta sana si Rubio sa Munich, Germany para dumalo sa isang security conference. Subalit, bigla ang lumiko pabalik ng Estados Unidos ang eroplano ng opisyal. Ayon sa isang spokesperson ng US State Department, nabasag ang windshield ng eroplanong sinasakyan ni Rubio kaya kinailangan itong bumalik ng airport para lumipat ng ibang eroplano. Hindi anya ito maituturing na safety issue dahil ipagpapatuloy pa rin ni Rubio ang official engagements nito sa Germany, Israel, Saudi Arabia at United Arab Emirates.
Sinabi ng United Nations Special Rapporteur na kagulat-gulat ang ipinataw ng paghihigpit ng Estados Unidos sa International Criminal Court o ICC. Alamin natin ang mga detalye mula kay Yolanda Aspiras.
Si International Criminal Court Prosecutor Karim Khan ang unang tinamaan ng economic at travel sanctions na ipinatutupad ni US President Donald Trump. Tinatarget ng sanctions ang War Crimes Tribunal dahil sa pag-iimbestiga nito sa mga mamamayan o mga kaalyado ng US. Kasama sa mga paghihigpit na dati na ring ipinatupad sa unang termino ni Trump ang pag-freeze ng US assets ng mga itinalaga ng ICC at ang pagharang sa kanila at mga kapamilya na bumisita sa Estados Unidos. Para kay UN Rapporteur Margaret Satterthwaite, nakabibigla ang aksyon na ito ng Trump administration.
Even though we knew that this was likely to happen, it's a shocking move. It is a true blow to the international rule of law and a direct punch in the face to a court that is the only one the international community can count on to hold to account people who are responsible for the most grave crimes. So honestly, it's shocking, it's unacceptable, and it requires a very robust response from the other member states of the International Criminal Court.
Unang nagbukas ang ICC noong 2022. May international jurisdiction ito na litisin ng mga kasong genocide, crimes against humanity at war crimes sa member states o kung ang isang sitwasyon ay inilapit ng UN Security Council. Ani Satterthwaite, kailangan ng karagdagang aksyon mula sa member states ukol sa paghihigpit ng US sa ahensya.
The initial response of a statement is excellent. But now what we need to see is, for example, the EU's blocking statute should be activated so that the official who has been sanctioned does not have to experience the sanctions in Europe at minimum. And then I think we also need to expect that there will be additional individuals potentially named.
Batay sa kasunduan sa pagitan ng UN at ng Washington, dapat na makabisita si Khan sa New York upang humarap sa UN Security Council ukol sa mga kaso na inilapit nito sa ICC sa Hague. Kasama rito ang sitwasyon sa Libya at sa Darfur region ng Sudan. Ani Satterthwaite, malaking suliranin ang targetin ng US, lalo na sa pagtupad ng ICC officials sa mga gampanin nila.
But concretely, it is a very serious and problematic thing to be targeted by the US government with sanctions. It means that your assets will be frozen, that you have no ability to use any kind of account that has dollars associated with it, that any kind of assets you might have that would touch the United States would be suddenly frozen, that you cannot get a visa to the US, which could, for a prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, really could throw a wrench not only in his ability to meet with officials, to meet with human rights defenders, with perhaps even witnesses and victims, but also his capacity to easily go to and from the UN headquarters. So these are very, very severe potential consequences.
Dagdag ni Satterthwaite, ang sanctions ay dapat ipataw sa mga sangkot sa terorismo at iba pang mga krimen.
This reminds us that these sanctions are meant to be for terrorism, terrorists, and for those, for example, involved in horrible crimes of trafficking or drug trafficking, and applying them now to a court implicates human rights lawyers who might be simply trying to get accountability for grave crimes and cooperating with the prosecutor. They could potentially be charged with material support for assisting a sanctioned person. That is shocking. So it's more severe in that way. It's an immediate reaction to the court's activity in a particular situation, in a situation where the international community unfortunately failed to stop grave violations against the people in Gaza. And now we need accountability for that situation. And instead, what we're getting is a powerful state sanctioning, attacking under law, the court. It's totally shocking. And I think for that reason, we need to keep the context in mind.
Yolanda Aspiras para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Samantala, binuweltahan ng Estados Unidos ang mga kritiko nito na laban sa estratehiya ng US at ng Russia ukol sa giyera sa Ukraine. Binabalaan ng Defense Secretary ng US ang Europa na huwag tratuhing uto-uto ang Estados Unidos. Bernhard Gonzaga po para sa report.
Noong Huwebes, binantaan ni US Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth ang Europe na huwag magkamaling gawing uto-uto ang Estados Unidos.
After World War II, First General and then President Eisenhower was one of NATO's strongest supporters. He believed in a strong relationship with Europe. However, by the end of Eisenhower's presidency, even he was concerned that Europe was not shouldering enough of its own defense, nearly making, in Eisenhower's words, quote, a sucker out of Uncle Sam. Well, like President Eisenhower, this administration believes in alliances, deeply believes in alliances. But make no mistake, President Trump will not allow anyone to turn Uncle Sam into Uncle Sucker.
Ayon kay Hegseth, Europe ang dapat na managot sa depensa ng rehiyon.
Leaders of our European allies should take primary responsibility for defense of the continent, which means security ownership by all allies, guided by a clear understanding of strategic realities, and it's an imperative given the strategic realities that we face.
Matapos kausapin ni Trump sina Russian President Vladimir Putin at Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky noong Miyerkules, sinabihan nito ang mga opisyal ng US na simulan na ang pag-uusap para tapusin ang giyera. Subalit na alarma ang mga KYIV at mga kaalyado nito sa posibilidad na magkaroon ng peace negotiation na hindi kasama ang Ukraine sa usapan. Bernhard Gonzaga para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Kinumpirma ng US Senate ang pagtatalaga kay Robert F. Kennedy Jr. o RFK Jr. bilang bagong Health Secretary ng bansa. Ngunit nagtataka ang ilan sa aksyon na ginawa ng Senado dahil kilala raw si RFK Jr. bilang anti-vaccine. Narito ang balita mula kay NJ De Guzman.
On this vote, the yeas are 52, the nays are 48. The confirmation is confirmed. Just number 4? Yeah, but just number 4.
Si Robert F. Kennedy Jr. na ang Secretary of Health and Human Services ng Estados Unidos. Ito ay matapos siyang kumpirmahin ng Senado noong Huwebes. Isang kritiko ng bakuna, inendorso ni Kennedy si Pangulong Donald Trump matapos niyang atrasan ang pagtakbo bilang Pangulo. Ang pagkakakumpirma kay Kennedy ay isang patunay na nalampasan nito ang paglaban ng establishmentong medikal at mga miyembro ng Kongreso. Ang boto ay nasa 50-48. kabilang si Senator Mitch McConnell ng Kentucky, ang kaisa-isang Republican na sumama sa 47 Democrats na bumoto laban kay Kennedy. Nangako si McConnell na poprotektahan nito ang mga programa ng bakuna sa bansa. Samantala, nagpahayag ng pag-alma si Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer sa bagong kumpirmadong Health Secretary.
By now, it's beyond clear that Mr. Kennedy is not remotely qualified to become the next Secretary of HHS. In fact, Mr. Kennedy might be one of the least qualified people that Donald Trump could have chosen for the job. There are so many others who would have been better. I'm very proud that every single Democrat will oppose Mr. Kennedy's nomination, because Democrats know better than to elevate a conspiracy theorist to the top healthcare job in the country.
Ipinagtanggol naman ni Idaho Senator Mike Carpo si Kennedy. Anya, nais lamang nito na ibase sa tamang saliksik ang mga bakuna.
Contrary to the attacks that have constantly been made on him, he has made it very clear that he will support safe vaccinations and just wants to see that the research on them is done and done well. When his nomination for the role of Secretary of HHS was announced, Mr. Kennedy stated, "We have a generational opportunity to bring together the greatest minds in science, medicine, industry, and government to put an end to the chronic disease epidemic facing Americans." I agree with him. We've got to get into the business of making America healthy again. Mr. Kennedy's dedication to this commitment has been apparent throughout the nomination process. He will bring a fresh perspective to health care.
Pangangasiwaan ni Kennedy ang ilang multiple high-profile agency, kabilang ang Food and Drug Administration at Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Ang 71-year-old na si Kennedy ay isang environmental lawyer na nagtanim ng pagdududa sa kaligtasan at bisa ng mga bakuna. Patatakbuhin na niya ngayon ang HHS Department na humahawak sa $3 trilyong na pondo. Kabilang din sa maaaring impluwensyahan ng kanyang posisyon ay ang Medicare at Medicaid programs na hatid ang health insurance para sa 140 million na Americans. Gayon din ang National Institutes of Health. NG de Guzman para sa mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Isang petition page ang gumagawa ngayon ng ingay dahil ang organizer at mga pumirma rito ay nais bilhin ng California State kay US President Donald Trump. Nakakalap na ng mahigit 230,000 signatures ang nasabing petition page. Sinabi ni Xavier Dutoit, ang organizer ng Let's Buy California from Trump page, na nabuo ang kanyang ideya noong nakaraang buwan habang siya ay nagbabakasyon sa Pilipinas. Narinig niya na pinag-uusapan ng malakas ng ilang turistang Amerikano ang kagustuhan ni Trump na bilhin ang Greenland sa Denmark. Paliwanag ni Xavier, parang hindi raw naunawaan ng Amerikanong turista kung gaano kawalang saysay at walang katuturan para sa sino mang pangulo ng bansa na mag-alok o magbanta na sakupin ang teritoryo ng ibang soberanya. Dahil rito, nag-set up siya ng isang petition page sa website na denmarkification.com. Iminungkahi rin niya na palitan ang pangalan ng California at gawing New Denmark. Sa ngayon, wala pang komento si Trump sa petition page na ginawa ni Xavier.
Pagwawakas sa illegal immigration ang isa po sa mga pangunahing ipinangako ni US President Donald Trump noong panahon ng kanyang kampanya. At ilang linggo matapos siyang umupo sa White House ay sinimulan kaagad ng kanyang administrasyon na tuparin na ang kanyang pangako noon. Ilang daang katao na nga ang pinadeport ni Trump dahil sa umano'y illegal na pagpasok ng mga ito sa Estados Unidos. Inalam po ng ating NET25 team sa North America ang iba't ibang opinyon ng mga tao ukol sa issue ito. Narito ang report ni Jane Kathleen Gregorio.
In light of President Donald Trump's recent crackdown on illegal immigration and the tightening of the U.S.-Mexico border, we spoke to some of our viewers from across the nation. Let's hear what they have to say.
I am in favor of the idea of expelling those who have entered the country illegally. You know, you break the law, there should be consequences. And I would expect the same from myself if I were to go to this country or that and enter it by illegal means. I would expect there to be consequences. And as far as the tightening up of the border, I kind of think those things go hand in hand. So I'm in favor of it. If you want to enter the country, I mean, there's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way.
My thoughts on Donald Trump's illegal immigration policy is that there needs to be a more humane way of releasing the people who came across illegally. Because even though they came across illegally, there still needs to be a humane process where people aren't separated from their friends and families and loved ones and from their jobs as well. My thoughts on the tightening of the U.S.-Mexico border is that it needs to be done, but done in a safe way so that people aren't injured or blocked from the necessary medical care they need.
My opinion about President Trump's illegal alien policy is if they came in as illegal to the United States, then I think he's just doing the right thing to protect his own country. My thoughts on the tightening of the U.S.-Mexico border is they're just protecting or limiting the number of people that can come in and out of the U.S. soil.
My opinion on President Trump's illegal immigrant policy is I would have thought it would have been done in a more compassionate way to deal with the illegal immigrants. In regards to the U.S.-Mexico border becoming more stricter, I think the pros are that it helps keep our country a little bit more safer.
I feel like if you broke the law, you have to pay the time. And the law says if you come into this country illegally, you've been subject to deportation. So when you get caught, don't be sorry. You're not sorry, you're just sorry you got caught because you did something wrong. You have to be punished. It's like having your house, your door is open in the morning for your kids to go out to go to school. That don't mean it's open for a stranger to walk and they have to be accepted. You're not going to walk across the border if we lock it up. But if we leave it open, you're going to walk in. So they're putting gates where you cannot come in because you need to go through the right process.
My thoughts are because of the past administration's open border policy, due to their lack of, inability to protect the border, so many immigrants did cross illegally. Like you have millions and millions of people that were promised. I do understand that Donald Trump's job, a lot of the immigrants that stampeded the border without any documentation. I can't say that I'm against it, but I'm a little bit afraid for relatives and for anybody that I care that might be, in the way. I'm 100% for tightening the border due to the fact that it has become very dangerous even for the people that live around there.
Well, personally, I would love to see a balance between national security and humanitarian considerations. I feel that there are certain policies that could be harsh to the public because they could affect vulnerable populations such as refugees or asylums or maybe just anyone seeking a better life. But if Trump's move aims to reduce the number of illegal immigrants, that's why he's tightening U.S.-Mexico borders, well, I would say I'm totally with him. I feel that if we are being too lenient, then it could compromise the safety of everybody.
I think it's a good thing that Trump is cracking down on the illegal immigrants, because imagine if someone broke into your house, what are you going to do? You're just going to let them stay in your house, or you're going to get rid of them from your house? When it comes to tightening the U.S. border, I believe it's a good thing, because if you let anybody into the country, then you don't know what their background is and where they come from or what their priorities are.
My take on the president's crackdown on immigration is that it seems to be focused on migrant crime and removing the criminal element from our country, which I'm happy about. I believe that our president shows strength, but he is also compassionate. I do think that he has a desire to help those immigrants that are here, that are a contribution to our society, that are bringing their talents and their gifts to this country. And I think it's a great opportunity for those friends and families of ours that are in that situation to start the process of finding out what they need to do to become citizens and to do it legally. We are a country of immigrants, and we're grateful for the ones that bring a contribution. But of course, the criminal element needs to be removed, and I'm happy that it is being removed at this time.
In Corpus Christi, Texas, I'm Jane Kathleen Gregorio, mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Hiniling ng Japan sa Estados Unidos na maging exempted ito sa 25% tariff na ipinataw ni US President Trump sa bakal at aluminum. Sinabi ni Japanese government spokesman Yoshimasa Hayashi na nagpadala ng letter of request ng Tokyo sa Washington sa pamamagitan ng embahada nito. Masusing pag-aaralan din ng Japan ayon kay Yoshimasa ang mga nilalaman at hakbang ng Trump tariffs at kung ano ang mga magiging epekto nito sa kanilang bansa. Tiniyak din ng opisyal na magsasagawa ang gobyerno ng Japan ng mga kinakailangang patakaran upang maibsan ang epekto ng taripa ni Trump sa mga bakal at aluminum.
Susunod, Mexico idedemanda ang Google dahil sa Gulf of Mexico issue.
Philippine team nagkamit ng gold medal sa Asian Winter Games.
At ito na, bagong music video ng Bini, inilabas na. Mga detalye po ng mga balita niyan at iba pa sa pagbabalik ng Mata ng Agila International.
Ito ang balita.
Financial straits.
Mata ng Agila Weekend tuwing Sabado, alas 4 ng hapon. Ito ang NET25. Matatag, matapang, matapak.
Let's net together sa NET25. Sa NET25.
Nagbabalik po ang Mata ng Agila International at sa pagpapatuloy ng ating mga balita ngayong gabi. Hindi bababa sa 30 katao ang nasaktan sa isang hit and run sa Munich, Germany. Kinilala ng pulisya ang driver na si Farhad Enhe, isang 24-year-old Afghan asylum seeker. Batay sa datos ng German press agency, dumating ang suspect sa bansa noong taong 2016, subalit hindi inaprubahan ang kanyang request para sa asylum noong sumunod na taon. Sinabi ng Munich Police na hawak na ng counter-terrorism officer ang investigasyon sa nasabing pag-atake ni Farhad. Naganap ang ramming incident bago magsimula ang Munich Security Conference na dadaluhan ng ilang world leaders, kabilang na sa Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky at US Vice President J.D. Vance.
Ilang oras na lamang at inaasahan na ang paglandfall ng Tropical Cyclone Zelia sa Western Australia. Ayon sa Bureau of Meteorology, nasa Category 5 si Zelia at una itong maglalandfall sa Karatha at Degrade. Inaasahan na magdadala ng flash floods at tropical cyclone dahil ang hanging taglay nito ay nasa 320 kilometers per hour habang nasa 500 millimeters ang taglay nitong ulan. Inalerto na ang gobyerno ang emergency services nito upang agad na rumesponde sa mga mangangailangan ng tulong dahil sa bagyo.
Atensyonan po ngayon online ang kulay pulang baha sa isang isla sa Iran matapos bumuhos ang malakas na ulan. Ayon sa lokal na ulat, ang lugar na ito ay isang Hormuz Island na mayaman sa mineral katulad ng iron oxide. Paliwanag ng mga eksperto dahil sa highly concentrated na iron oxide sa lugar, kaya pala nagkulay pula ang mga buhangin sa mga baybayin nito. Ayon naman sa mga natives doon, ang reddish ochre na kulay na ito ay tinatawag na golak na karaniwang ginagamit para sa artistic at culinary purposes. Dahil dito, maraming mga turista ang bumibisita sa isla para sa magagandang mga tanawin doon. Isa na rin dito ang mga mangrove tree forests at mga kulay pulang shorelines na kakaibang pagmasdan sa lugar.
Sinabi ng hepe ng World Health Organization o WHO na nagkakaroon ng matinding epekto sa global health response ang pagtigil ng foreign aid contributions ng Estados Unidos. Si Cherry Recolizado para sa balita.
Nagpapala si WHO Chief Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus na apektado ng pagtigil ng foreign aid contributions ng US ang mga programang laban sa polio, HIV at iba pang panta. Hinikayat ni Dr. Tedros ang US na ituloy ang kontribusyon nito hanggang makahanap ng solusyon ukol sa pondo ang ahensya.
A significant part of WHO's response to health emergencies in Uganda, DRC, Gaza, Sudan, and elsewhere is supported by funding from the United States. As we have said, we regret the announcement that the United States intends to withdraw from WHO, and we would welcome the opportunity to engage in constructive dialogue. There are also actions that the US government is taking that are unrelated to its intended withdrawal from WHO, but which we're concerned are having a serious impact on global health.
Hinalimbawa ni Dr. Tedros ang pondo ukol sa HIV and AIDS na direktang nakaapekto sa prevention services sa 50 bansa.
For example, the suspension of funding to PEPFAR, the President's Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief, caused an immediate stop to HIV treatment, testing, and prevention services in the 50 countries that PEPFAR supports based on bilateral agreements. Although a waiver has been granted for life-saving services, it does not include prevention services for some of the most at-risk groups.
Kasama sa mga naapektuhan ng US foreign aid post na ipinatupad ni Pangulong Donald Trump ay ang mga programa upang labanan ang polio, mpox at avian flu.
Despite the waiver, clinics are shuttered and health workers have been put on leave. WHO is gathering data on service disruptions and supporting countries with mitigation measures, including by filling gaps in supplies of antiretrovirals. The sudden suspension of US funding and the sudden disengagement of US institutions is also affecting the response to global efforts to eradicate polio and the response to mpox epidemics in Africa.
Kasama ng aid freeze, balak din ni Trump na iatras ang US mula sa WHO na ayon sa ahensya ay makapipinsala rin sa paglaban sa outbreaks at sa influenza.
In Myanmar, almost 60,000 people, most of them women and children, have been left with no access to life-saving services. And we have limited information about the spread of avian influenza among dairy cattle in the US or human cases. We ask the US to consider continuing its funding at least until solutions can be found.
Samantala, sinabi ni Interim Director for Pandemics and Epidemics, Maria Van Kerkhove, na walang natatanggap na influenza reports ang WHO galing sa US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention mula pa noong Enero 24.
We hope that this exchange resumes soon. We are continuing to reach out to our colleagues in the U.S. government agencies. We haven't heard back from them, but we will continue to reach out, and we hope again that exchange resumes. I want to reiterate that the U.S. has reported human cases of avian influenza through IHR. That has continued. And we do hope that there will be more uploads to the different websites and through the different portals related to influenza, as well as other diseases. So it's not just influenza, obviously, that we're concerned about, but all of them.
Dagdag ni Tedros, umaasa ang WHO na muli makikipagtulungan ang US sa ahensya.
Meaning we're asking exactly the same thing. We're asking share burden, and the US is saying share the burden, so there is no difference at all. And we started this seven years ago. And if there are other issues they raise, we are building a transparent organization, an accountable organization, a responsive organization, and we would respond to any queries or issues there are, and we hope US will reconsider and work with us to continue the reform that we have started seven years ago.
Cherry Recolisado para sa mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Sigurado namang hindi malilimutan ng kayaker na si Adrian Simancas ang araw na siya ay nilunok po ng isang humpback whale sa Chile. Nagkayak itong si Adrian at ang tatay niyang si Del sa isang dagat sa Punta Arenas City. Nagulat na lamang si Adrian nang sumulpot ang isang balyena at siya ay nilunok. Napasigaw si Del sa takot na tuluyang mawawala na si Adrian. Subalit, makalipas ang 3 segundo ay niluwarin ng balyena si Adrian sa dagat. Nagpumilit si Adrian na lumangoy papunta kay Del at dali-dali namang sinaklolohan ni Del ang kanyang anak dahil baka naman bumalik pa ang balyena.
Nanawagan ng Mexico sa Google na isiping mabuti ang desisyon nitong palitan ang pangalan ng Gulf of Mexico bilang Gulf of America sa mga US users. Nagbanta ito ng posibleng pagsasampa ng kaso laban sa kumpanya. Si Rosel Feria para sa balita.
Inaapila ni Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum na pag-isipang muli ng Google ang desisyon nitong palitan ang ngalang Gulf of Mexico para sa US users ng search engine. Ani Sheinbaum, ang pagpapalit nito sa ngalang Gulf of America ay isang pasyang unilateral ng gobyerno ng US na anya'y hindi kinikilala ng mundo. Binigyang diin ng Pangulo na maaari lamang gamitin ang pagpapalit ngalan nito sa teritoryong soberanya. Yan ay 22 nautical miles mula sa baybayin nito.
El decreto dice plataforma continental. Así fue publicado. Entonces tiene que cumplirse con eso, que el único lugar donde puede llamarle de una manera distinta a Estados Unidos es donde ejerce soberanía, y es 22 millas náuticas desde la costa, en su territorio.
Nagbanta si Sheinbaum na kung hindi magbabago ang desisyon ng Google, maaaring magdemanda ang Mexico.
Entonces Google está equivocado. Entonces contestaron y le regresó la carta el canciller diciendo que no, que están equivocados, que no se puede llamar a todo el Golfo de México Golfo de América. Se le volvió a dar el decreto y se le volvió a decir cuáles son las normas internacionales. Entonces, si siguen insistiendo, nosotros también, pues ahí estamos pensando incluso una demanda.
Nananatiling Gulf of Mexico ang ngalan nito sa Google Maps para sa Mexican users. Samantala, para sa Google Map users sa labas ng dalawang bansa, kapang pangalan ang makikita. Rosel Feria para sa Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Pinangarap ng Nissan at Honda na maging isang kumpanya upang hamunin sana ang mabilis na pagsikat at pag-angat ng mga Chinese electric vehicle makers. Subalit hindi na itutuloy ng Nissan at Honda ang kanilang $60 billion na merger deal. Sa gitna kasi ng kanilang negosasyon ay umusbong ang iba't ibang problema. Marami pala silang pagkakaiba sa pagpapatakbo ng kumpanya at hindi rin pumayag ang Nissan na maging subsidiary ito ng Honda. Sa kabila naman po nito ay tiniyak ng dalawang automakers na patuloy silang magtutulungan para sa iba pang aspeto ng teknolohiya. Available na muli ang TikTok sa Apple at Google App Store sa Estados Unidos matapos pagpasyahan ni US President Donald Trump na i-delay ang implementasyon ng pagbabawal ng naturang app sa bansa. Noong Enero 19 nang saglit na inalis sa Estados Unidos ang TikTok dahil sa batas na pumipilit sa Chinese owner nito na ByteDance na isara o ibenta ito sa ibang kumpanya dahil banta umano ito sa national security ng US. Subalit matapos manumpa si Pangulong Trump ay ipinag-utos nito na magpatupad ng 75-day delay sa ban para kanyang pag-isipan umano ang magiging kapalaran ng Chinese app. Si Trump din ang nagsabi na posibleng ibebenta ang TikTok sa mga kilalang tao at kumpanya sa US katulad na lamang ng Oracle at ni Elon Musk.
Isang makasaysayang panalo para sa Pilipinas dahil naiuwi ng Philippine curling team ang kauna-unahang gintong medalya sa Asian Winter Olympics o Asian Winter Games na ginanap sa Harbin, China. Tinalo ng koponan ng Pilipinas ang South Korea sa score na 5-3. Sinabi ni Filipino-Swiss Mark Angelo Pfister na hindi lamang basta medalya ang kanilang hangad, kundi gintong medalya at ang maging kampiyon sa men's curling. Binati ng Philippine Olympic Committee ang pagkapanalo ni Mark Angelo, Alan Beat-Frey, Christian Patrick Holler, Enrico Gabriel Pfister at Benjo Delarmente. Anila ang pagkapanalo ng Pilipinas ang pinakamataas na tagumpay para sa isang atleta ng Southeast Asian athlete sa kasaysayan ng Asian Games.
Inilabas na po ng P-pop girl group na BINI ang kanilang official music video para sa bago nilang kantang Blink Twice. Sa official YouTube channel ng P-pop girl group, mapapanood ang nasabing video at trending #1 ito ngayon sa nasabing streaming platform at wala pang isang araw nang ito ay upload. Aba, nakagather na po ito ng mahigit sa 1 million views. Bago pa ang Blink Twice, nakilala ng BINI dahil sa mga inilabas silang awitin na Salamin-Salamin, Pantropiko, Karera, Lagi at iba pa. Ang nasabing grupo ay binubuo ni Mika, Aya, Colette, Maloy, Gwen, Stacy, Joanna at Sheena na nag-debut naman noong taong 2021. Samantala, bukas na ang pinaka-aabangang Biniverse World Tour kick-off concert ng nasabing grupo at mangyayari ito bukas sa Philippine Arena. Ngayon pa lamang ay excited na talaga ang Blooms para sa malaking konsyertong ito ng kanilang mga idolo.
Sa ibang mga balita ay pinarada sa runway ng mga models ang makukulay at nagagandahang mga Chinese traditional attire sa isang fashion show para sa Lantern Event Gala. Ayon sa China Media Group, ang host ng event, lubos ang naging paghahanda nila para sa taunang selebrasyon dahil star-studded daw ang mga nagtanghal para rito. Anila, hindi basta-basta ang kasuotang itinampok sa fashion show dahil ito ay pagpapakita ng husay sa craftsmanship ng traditional Tibetan costumes at yamang kultural ng Xizang Autonomous Region. Ang Lantern event ay isinasagawa kada ika-15 araw ng Chinese lunar calendar bilang pagtatapos sa kanilang pagdiriwang para sa spring event.
Nasa 120 teams ang sumabak sa taunang snowball fight event sa Onuma, Niigata Prefecture sa Japan. Ayon po sa organizers ng palaro, kilala ang snowball fight sa tawag na Yukigassen. Anila, simple lamang ang rules ng larong ito. 2 minuto para sa 2 kupunan. Paliwanag ng Japan Yuki Gassen Federation, kapag ang isang player ay tinamaan ng snowball ay out na sila sa match. Ibig po sabihin, mananalo lamang ang isang team kapag naubos nito ang mga manlalaro ng kalaban nitong kupunan. Ito na ang pang-35 edisyon ng COIDE International Snowball Fight, kung saan ay inaabangan talaga sa tuwing winter season.
Nako, di tayo relate dyan dahil wala namang snow sa Pilipinas.
Wala naman.
Yun nga.
Pero sana, tignan mo, napakalamig talaga dyan, ano, Nina?
Totoo.
No?
Di ba nga binalita kailan lang, parang last week yata yun, na merong taas na may 1 meter yung snow sa ibang parte ng Japan. So, ang lamig talaga nga siguro.
Yan. Sa atin talagang lumalagablab ang ating mga kasuotan.
Iba, nag-aapoy, lumiliyab. Tama ka.
Parang yung binalita natin kanina nga, di ba, na pulang-pula pala talaga yung kanilang pagbaha. At syempre, dahil po, ngayon po ay weekend. Nakalain mo, Nina.
Naman, parang ang bilis-bilis ng mga araw at weekend na naman.
Exciting. Kaya sana po ay lumagablab din sa pagmamahala ng inyong weekend kasama ang inyong mga mahal sa buhay. At magkita-kita pa rin po tayo sa Lunes. Dahil tandaan, narito kami ni Nina para maghatid ng balita saan mang dako na mundo. Happy Friday and happy weekend, everyone. Ako po muli si Ricky Matay.
Isang weekend na puno po ng pagmamahal sa inyong lahat. Ako si Nina Richie Alago Flores. Ito ang Mata ng Agila International. Para naman po sa iba pang mga balitang nangyari rin sa iba't ibang panig ng mundo, punta tayo kay Alma Angeles para sa Mata ng Agila World News. Take it away, Alma.
Thank you, Nina Enrique. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines, China has urged the Philippines to withdraw the United States Typhoon intermediate range missile, the Defense Ministry said, accusing the Southeast Asian nation of breaking its promises by introducing the missile system.
Marcos is that if the People's Republic of China will stop its illegal, coercive, aggressive, and deceptive actions in the West Philippine Sea, then he offered PRC a deal that the President would then remove the Typhoon missile systems immediately from Philippine soil.
German prosecutors are now treating the case of a man who drove a car into a crowd in Munich on Thursday as a murder attempt. At least 36 people were injured, some of them seriously. Security was high in Munich as the Munich Security Conference started today with some 5,000 officers deployed. A devastating fire at a resort construction site in Busan, South Korea has claimed the lives of at least 6 individuals, according to local fire officials. And the news starts now. China has urged the Philippines to withdraw the United States Typhoon intermediate range missile, the Defense Ministry said, accusing the Southeast Asian nation of breaking its promises by introducing the missile system. Now, the system is part of a U.S. drive to amass a variety of anti-ship weapons in Asia. The weapon drew sharp criticism from China when first deployed in April 2024 during a training exercise. The Philippines was not only giving up its own security and national defense to others, but also introducing the risks of geopolitical confrontation and arms race into the region, that according to Zhang Zhaogang, a spokesman for the Chinese Defense Ministry. The missile system is a strategic offensive weapon, and the Philippine side had repeatedly broken its promises and catered to the U.S. side in introducing this system, he added. Now, the comments came as Jonathan Malaya, a spokesperson for the Philippine National Security Council, told a press conference that the Typhoon missile was only meant for defense and that the Philippines had never promised to withdraw the Typhoon missile.
Marcos is that if the People's Republic of China will stop its illegal, coercive, aggressive, and deceptive actions in the West Philippine Sea, then he offered PRC a deal that the President would then remove the Typhoon missile systems immediately from Philippine soil.
German prosecutors are now treating the case of a man who drove a car into a crowd in Munich on Thursday as a murder attempt.
He has admitted that he deliberately drove into the participants of the demonstration. He gave a reason for this, which I would summarize as religious motivation. I can't quote from the interrogation of the accused here. I'm sure you understand that. But what he said about it suggests a religious motivation for the offense.
Lässt auf eine religiöse Tatmotivation schließen.
We also found a chat in which he presumably spoke to a relative and said goodbye with the words, "Maybe I won't be around tomorrow."
At least 36 people were injured, some of them seriously, as a result of the incident, according to the statement. Security was high in Munich as the Munich Security Conference started today with some 5,000 officers deployed around the Bavarian capital, according to police. The top-level security conference will be attended, among others, by U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. At the Munich Security Conference, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance issued a stern warning to Russia, stating that Washington is prepared to impose further sanctions and consider military action if Moscow fails to negotiate a peace deal with Ukraine that ensures its long-term independence. Now, Vance emphasized that there are economic tools of leverage. There are, of course, military tools of leverage that the U.S. could employ against President Vladimir Putin. Vance is scheduled to meet with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky during this conference. And this meeting follows President Donald Trump's recent announcement of initiating talks with Putin to end the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, a move that has raised concerns among European allies about the potential implications for regional security. Additionally, Vance reiterated the U.S. administration's call for European nations to increase their defense spending, aligning with President Trump's long-standing demand for NATO allies to take on a greater share of defense responsibilities.
I wanted, given the attacks yesterday, to offer my condolences from my wife and I. Munich is a beautiful city that we've actually visited before, both on work but also on vacation. So very, very sad for what's happened, and wish everybody the best as you guys recover and try to care for the victims and their families. And we'll have, I think, a good conversation about how to move the relationship forward and cooperate on some areas of shared interest. As you all know, one of the things that the President and I really believe is that Europe is, of course, a very important ally for the United States. We also think it's really important to recognize that in the future, we think Europe is going to have to take a bigger role in its own security, and obviously Germany, being the biggest economy in Europe, is going to have a major role to play there, and so I'm sure we'll talk about that as well.
Thanks for your condolences. Just returning from the place where the attack was taking place yesterday. Indeed, there is a need for an exchange. We are opening a new chapter in our transatlantic and our German-American relations. I experience now 25 years of these relations intensive relations between Germany and the United States of America.
Kiev and its European allies have demanded that they may be included in any peace negotiations after U.S. President Donald Trump spoke by phone with Russia's Vladimir Putin. During the call, Trump seemed to agree that Ukraine could neither have all of its land back nor join NATO. Now, Trump's talk with Putin has set off alarms in Europe and left Ukraine wondering whether the U.S. has surrendered on its behalf. Thomas Eyelikeness for more.
Donald Trump likes to portray himself as the great deal maker, the uber negotiator. But following his phone call with Putin about settling the Russia-Ukraine war, it looks like he walked away with nothing. Armida Van Roo, an analyst with the British think tank Chatham House, says following that conversation, things aren't looking good for Ukraine.
The fact that Trump seemingly gave everything away and Putin got everything he wanted is not a good sign for things to come. The other question, of course, is what does this actually look like? And that's where I think the distinction between a ceasefire and a peace deal is important, because a ceasefire means that Ukraine could hold on to its territorial integrity, whereas a peace deal on current lines would mean along the current front lines would mean ceding significant amounts of territory to Russia.
That seems to be the American position. Let Russia keep what it has captured. Trump says it, and his defense minister, Pete Hegseth, parrots it.
We must start by recognizing that returning to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is an unrealistic objective. Chasing this illusionary goal will only prolong the war and cause more suffering.
Trump and Hegseth also rule out eventual membership in NATO for Ukraine, another one of Putin's demands. Ukraine and its allies say they must have a seat at the negotiating table and a central role in the talks. Europe is especially concerned about how a final peace treaty will affect it. And analyst Van Roo says the EU will be actively involved.
Europe's and their own national interests and national security is directly threatened by current developments and will therefore take a more active lead and role on this, the UK being one of them, but the Baltic states and the Nordic states very much as well.
And Trump? How does he see Ukraine's role in the peace process?
We would have Ukraine, we would have Russia, and we'll have other people involved too. A lot of people, a lot of forks in the a lot of forks in this game. I'll tell you what, this is a very interesting situation, but the Ukraine war has to end.
But so far, Trump has left Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky playing second fiddle. It seems Ukraine has been seated at the kids' table, while the big boys talk about a peace plan over dinner. Van Roo says that became evident when Trump called Putin first.
In the conversation, he did not say that Putin and Russia was a priority. And today, we trust these words. It is very important for us to keep U.S. support. But it is very important that I mentioned during our yesterday's conversation, we had already 3 conversations with President Trump. I don't treat this phone call with Putin as priority. The fact that Donald Trump first talked to Russia. But in any case, it is unpleasant.
She says that leaves Zelensky at a disadvantage.
So the fact that Trump called Putin first and not Zelensky means that Zelensky won't have had the opportunity to impress on Trump his key positions and views and perspectives on how any potential discussions of a ceasefire might unfold or unroll. And that's obviously significant because essentially it means that Ukraine is being cut out of the discussion, and Putin and Trump are speaking directly to each other without taking Ukraine's position into account.
For people on the street in Ukraine, there's disappointment. They feel snubbed by Trump, something Van Roo says is not surprising.
I could imagine that they might feel sold out by the US. And that's so the past 24 hours have really been quite depressing for Ukrainian partners. But that's why, again, the European role and what really thinking through what else the European allies can do to support that is so important.
Since the beginning of the Russian invasion, the United States has been backing Ukraine. But with a new president in the White House, that support for Kyiv appears to be waning. And to many, once again, America is proving to its allies that it cannot be relied on. Thomas I. Likeness, NET25 World News.
A Russian drone caused significant damage to the radiation containment shelter at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant overnight, according to Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, Zelensky and the UN's energy watchdog both said that radiation levels remained normal after this incident, which came as top U.S., Ukrainian, and European officials gathered at the Munich Security Conference to discuss the war in Ukraine.
We had an attack on Chernobyl nuclear power plant tonight. The confinement over the 4th reactor was hit, which is very dangerous. 40 countries built it for a reason.
Chernobyl was the site of the world's worst civil nuclear catastrophe when one of its 4 reactors exploded in 1986, and that reactor is now enveloped by a protective shelter to contain the lingering radiation. The last working reactor at Chernobyl was shut down in 2000. Russia occupied the plant and the surrounding area for over a month during its push for the capital Kiev at the beginning of the invasion. The Russian drone struck the shelter of the destroyed power unit at the plant, causing a fire that has been extinguished, Zelensky wrote on the Telegram app. According to initial assessments, the damage to the shelter is significant, he said. A devastating fire at a resort construction site in Busan, South Korea has claimed the lives of at least 6 individuals, according to local fire officials. The blaze erupted at around 10:20 a.m. local time Friday, leading to the evacuation of approximately 100 workers. Rescue teams utilized helicopters to airlift 14 individuals from the building's top rooftop. Despite the efforts of hundreds of firefighters, the fire was not fully extinguished until the afternoon. Authorities have reported that 6 people were found unconscious on the first floor near the suspected origin of the fire and were later pronounced dead at nearby hospitals. An additional 25 individuals sustained minor injuries. The cause of the fire remains under investigation. In response to the incident, South Korea's acting president, Choi Sang-mok, has ordered the deployment of all available resources to manage the situation. On Wednesday morning, a U.S. Navy EA-18G Growler jet crashed into San Diego Bay during an attempted landing at Naval Air Station North Island. The 2 crew members ejected safely before the aircraft submerged. They were rescued by a nearby charter fishing boat and subsequently transferred to a U.S. Customs and Border Protection vessel, then taken to UC San Diego Medical Center for evaluation. Both are reported to be in stable condition. The incident occurred around 10:15 a.m. local time during a go-around maneuver where the aircraft was landing and then taking off again. The cause of the crash is currently under investigation. Environmental and safety teams have been deployed to mitigate potential impacts, and the public is advised to avoid any debris that may wash ashore. Local authorities are coordinating with the military to control the debris field and contain any hazardous materials resulting from this incident. U.S. President Donald Trump has fired the first shots in what could become a global trade war. Trump ordered his economic team to develop plans for reciprocal tariffs on every country that taxes U.S. imports. Kristen Fragata has more.
President Donald Trump's proposal ramps up the possibility of a global trade war with American friends and foes. He also wants to counteract non-tariff barriers such as vehicle safety rules that exclude U.S. autos and value-added taxes that increase their cost.
They can build a factory here, a plant or whatever it might be here, and that includes the medical, that includes cars, that includes chips and semiconductors. That includes everything. If you build here, you have no tariffs whatsoever. And I think that's what's going to happen. I think our country is going to be flooded with jobs. They say this is going to be the thing that makes our country really prosperous again.
His main targets include China, Japan, South Korea, and the European Union. But no country is immune. And Trump claims money collected from the tariffs will pay down the national debt.
And this is going to be what pays down to $36 trillion in debt and all the other things. And this is going to be, this is an amazing day. I think this is going to be a very big day and in a very positive way for our country.
Details are thin on how this will affect U.S. consumers and what it will do to the inflation rate. Instead, Trump continues to promote his dream that tariffs will not only bring in money, but create jobs.
We know that jobs are going to be produced at levels that we haven't seen before. We know that we think interest rates are going to ultimately be coming down because of things that happen, and they go hand in hand with the tariffs. But we think that The prices for some things, many things, it could be all things, will go down. Ultimately will go down.
The president admits prices could go up in the short term, but he insists companies will return to the United States and build factories.
We want it to be made. We want those companies to come to our country, in all due respect. You know, they took the business away. Taiwan took our chip business away. We had Intel, we had these great companies that did so well, and it was taken from us. And we want that business back. We want it back in the United States. And if they don't bring it back, we're not going to be very happy.
Wall Street reacted positively, with U.S. stocks adding to the day's gains. Investors worry that tariffs will add to inflation and keep interest rates high.
At some point, the threat of a tariff and the forced negotiation will not end in the way that Donald Trump wants, where he will be forced to either to capitulate, which might change his ability to use that threat in the future, or actually follow through, some of which may have far unforeseen consequences and unexpected outcomes.
Kristen Fragata for NET25 World News.
India and the United States have agreed to initiate talks aimed at securing an early trade deal and resolving tariff disputes. Following discussions between President Trump and Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the White House, India has committed to increasing its purchases of U.S. oil, gas, and military equipment, as well as addressing illegal immigration.
Starting this year, we'll be increasing military sales to India by many billions of dollars. We're also paving the way to ultimately provide India with the F-35 stealth fighters. In 2017, my administration revived and reinvigorated the Quad security partnership. In our meeting today, the Prime Minister and I reaffirmed that strong cooperation among the United States, India, Australia, and Japan. And it's crucial, really, to maintaining peace and prosperity, tranquility, even in the Indo-Pacific.
Friends, today we have also set ourselves the target of more than doubling bilateral trade to attain $500 billion by 2030.
$500 billion
Our teams will work on concluding very soon a mutually beneficial trade agreement in order to ensure India's energy security.
Trade agreement ko
We will focus on trade in oil and gas.
भारत की ऊर्जा सुरक्षा सुनिश्चित करने में हम ऑयल तथा गैस ट्रेड को बल
The United States will increase military sales to India starting this year and will eventually provide F-35 fighter jets, according to Trump. Trump didn't provide a timeline, but foreign military sales, especially for cutting-edge technology like the stealthy F-35 jet, typically take years to work through. A Trump administration official told reporters earlier that U.S. and Indian officials were also moving forward with talks on a bilateral trade deal, and they hope to have a deal in place this year. Now, this development comes after President Trump criticized India's business environment and announced plans for reciprocal tariffs on countries imposing duties on U.S. imports. And the news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Japan's Nissan and Honda ended talks to create an auto group worth $60 billion, pitching Nissan into greater uncertainty, although the automakers promised to continue to collaborate on electric vehicles. Francis McGuire reports.
Nissan and Honda ended talks to create an auto group worth $60 billion on Thursday. Sources have said the talks were complicated by growing differences. One major point of tension came from Honda's proposal to make Nissan a subsidiary. Honda CEO Toshihiro Mibe said he was deeply disappointed the two couldn't reach an agreement. Nissan CEO Makoto Uchida explained his thinking.
If Nissan wants to become a wholly owned subsidiary of Honda, from our perspective, it raises questions on how much autonomy would be preserved for us, and whether Nissan's potential could truly be maximized. We were not fully convinced on these issues. and as a result, we were unable to accept this proposal.
A merger would have created the world's fourth biggest automaker by vehicle sales. The Japanese auto giants had sought to join forces to better fight disruption in the industry, mainly from fast-rising Chinese electric vehicle makers. The country's car makers now also face the headwinds of possible tariffs in the US. The deal's collapse causes more uncertainty for Nissan, which hasn't fully recovered from years of crisis and management turmoil. The automaker also reported a sharp 78% drop in third-quarter profit Thursday and cut its full-year outlook for the third time. Nissan said it would speed up turnaround efforts announced 3 months ago. It said it plans to cut costs by $2.6 billion in fiscal 2026. It wants to build a leaner and more resilient business by reducing labour costs and restructuring its manufacturing base. Nissan and Honda first announced talks in December, but before that they had held separate discussions on a technology collaboration. On Thursday they said they would continue to collaborate on electric vehicles. Nissan is now open to working with new partners. Sources told Reuters Taiwan's Foxconn is seen as one candidate.
Australia's northwest is on high alert as Cyclone Zilia, a powerful Category 5 storm, approaches the Pilbara coast. The cyclone is expected to make landfall east of Port Hedland, bringing wind gusts of up to 290 kilometers per hour and heavy rainfall. In anticipation, major commodity ports in the Pilbara region, including Port Hedland, the world's largest iron ore export hub, have been closed since Wednesday.
We're ready to deal with the aftermath of the cyclone, which will pack 290 km/h winds and dump more than 500 millimetres of rain through the Pilbara. It is critical that impacted communities don't get complacent because the hazards won't ease once the cyclone has passed. Conditions after a cyclone can be just as dangerous as the cyclone itself.
On the eastern side of the tropical cyclone track, a dangerous storm surge is possible, which could cause flash flooding of coastal areas. However, the storm surge risk in line with the movement of the cyclone is greatly reduced for the Port Hedland area.
Residents of Port Hedland have been advised to seek shelter indoors, while non-essential staff have been relocated to safer areas. In other news tonight, First Lady Liza Araneta Marcos is urging countries worldwide to work together to combat climate change. Speaking at the Climate Adaptability and Energy Forum during the World Government Summit in Dubai, she emphasized that climate change isn't just about numbers. It's about real people facing hardships they didn't cause.
Our country is among the most vulnerable nations to climate change. For 3 consecutive years, we have been ranked the most at-risk country in the world by the World Risk Index, the most at-risk country. So what does this mean in real terms? Just 4 months ago, between October and November 2024, our country endured an unprecedented 6 tropical cyclones in less than a month. By the way, for those of you who do not know why typhoons are named after women, it's because women are unpredictable and on a rampage. So, I'm gonna cry. I met a fisherman from Batangas. Batangas is a province that's known for its beautiful beaches and mild weather. Historically, typhoons rarely hit this province. This fisherman, his name was Edwin Mendoza, saw a nearby house collapsing because of the raging river. And so he rushed over to save the people inside. They were submerged in water, they couldn't swim, so he rushed there to save them. He managed to rescue them, but when he returned home, he found his whole house buried in mud. His entire family was lost in the landslide. That's him over there. I met him a week after this incident. I guess what I'm trying to say, apart from all the drama, is that climate change is not just about statistics. It has a human face, a face that belongs to millions of families suffering the consequences. Our country is deeply committed to climate change. We've also launched, well, my husband has also launched, a national adaptation plan to strengthen the resilience of our communities, particularly in infrastructure and energy. The unfortunate truth, however, is that no country can solve this crisis alone. We need global solidarity. Let's not wait for another crisis to force us into action. The time to act is now.
And breaking medical news tonight, scientists have created microscopic robots that could revolutionize cancer treatment. These tiny machines, called bioresorbable acoustic micro-robots, or BANs, can navigate through the body and deliver medications exactly where they're needed. Now, when tested on mice with bladder cancer, these micro-robots prove significantly more effective than traditional drug delivery methods, shrinking tumors more effectively over a 3-week treatment period. Take a look.
Could these tiny robots make drug delivery more efficient? Scientists from the California Institute of Technology have developed a minuscule robot designed for targeted drug delivery, according to a recent paper in Science Robotics. The micro-robots, which are smaller than the width of a human hair, are capable of operating in bodily fluids, and they're controlled to deliver the medicine exactly where it's needed in the human body. Wei Gao is a professor of medical engineering at Caltech.
Micro nano robot has a high potential to navigate through the hard-to-reach environment of the human body for precision surgery or drug delivery.
The robots use magnetic nanoparticles, allowing precise control of their movement using an external magnetic field. Researchers are able to direct them to specific locations and trigger the release of the drug once they reach their target. Combined with advanced ultrasound imaging, the robots can be tracked and guided in real time. Once they've done their job, they can be absorbed by the body without causing harm.
So in this work, we presented this bioresorbable hydrogel micro-robot. We can actually fabricate this micro-robot using 2-photon polymerization. It's scalable manufacturing. And this micro-robot, through surface modification and structure design, they can display very efficient propulsion in complex environment, including human blood, urine, GI fluid.
The team tested the micro-robots on mice with bladder tumors and found they shrunk the tumors more effectively than the same medicine delivered without the robots.
Over a 21-day treatment period, we see a substantial decrease in tumor size in the mice when treated with the micro-robot.
Moving forward, the team plans to explore more medical applications with the goal of conducting clinical trials in humans.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you for joining us. Have a great weekend. Good night.